What if the anger you've been fighting your whole life was never yours to begin with? What if every time you say, "That's just how I am," you are quietly imprisoning yourself? Stay until the very end of this video, because the final realization may gently dissolve a struggle you've been trying to fix for years. This is not a motivational speech. This is not about controlling emotions or becoming a better person. This is an ancient teaching from Zen Master Bankei, translated into a language your daily life can finally understand. If you truly listen, not as someone trying to improve, but as someone willing to see clearly, what you hear today may change the way anger, fear, and inner conflict arise forever. Watch until the end. Like and save this video, not for motivation, but for remembrance. Let me tell you a story. A monk once approached the Zen Master Bankei. He bowed deeply and spoke with desperation. He said, "I was born with a bad temper. It flares up without warning. My teacher has corrected me many times, but nothing works. I know I should change, but I can't. This is how I was born." He wasn't asking for advice. He was asking for permission to give up. And if we're honest, many of us have stood exactly where that monk stood. You've said it too, maybe not out loud. "I was born anxious. I've always been sensitive. I just have a short fuse. That's my personality." These sentences feel innocent, but they quietly lock the door from the inside. So Bankei looked at the monk and said something unexpected. He didn't comfort him. He didn't encourage him. He said, "That's an interesting inheritance you have. Bring it here. Show me this temper of yours, and I'll cure it for you." The monk froze, because his anger wasn't there. And that moment, that simple pause, is where the entire teaching begins. If something only exists sometimes, can it truly be who you are? The monk answered honestly, "I'm not angry right now. It only happens when something provokes me." And Bankei replied, "Then you weren't born with it." Pause here. Let that sentence land. If anger only appears when conditions provoke it, then it is not an inheritance. It is a reaction. And reactions are created. Bankei continued, "You create it yourself when something happens. Without that cause, where would your temper be?" This is not philosophy. This is observation. Right now, as you are watching this video, where is your anger? Where is your fear? Where is your insecurity? They are not hiding. They are simply not being produced. And yet, when they appear later today, you will likely say, "There it is again. That's just me." But Bankei calls this out sharply. You work yourself into a temper because of partiality for yourself, opposing others to get your own way. Then you accuse your parents for giving you this temper. That may sound harsh, but what he is pointing to is subtle and crucial. Anger is not born, it is defended. Imagine sitting in traffic. Someone cuts in front of you. Instantly, heat rises in your chest. Your jaw tightens. Thoughts rush in. How rude. People are so selfish. They shouldn't do that. Now ask yourself, was anger waiting inside you? Or did it arise because your sense of me was challenged? You weren't defending safety. You were defending your idea of how things should go. That defense, that attachment, is what creates the anger. Anger is not something you have. It is something you produce when self-interest feels threatened. Bankei says something radical. Each person receives the Buddha mind from their parents at birth. Illusion is produced alone by being partial to oneself. This is not religious language. It is psychological clarity. The Buddha mind is awareness before reaction, presence before judgment, clarity before habit. In modern terms, you were born whole, open, undivided. You were not born angry. You were not born anxious. You were not born broken. So what happened? From infancy, you watched others lose their temper. You watched adults worry, blame, react. You learned it, not consciously, but through repetition. Anger became familiar. Familiar became normal. Normal became me. But familiarity is not identity. A child grows up in a house where shouting is normal. No one explains anger, no one names it, but the child absorbs it like a language. Years later, the child explodes in rage and says, "I've always been like this." But what they really mean is, "This is what I was trained to repeat." Habits feel innate only because they were learned early and repeated often. Most people try to fix anger after it appears. They breathe, they suppress, they justify. Bankei calls this futile. Instead of trying to correct it, don't produce it in the first place. You don't cure fire after the house burns. You stop striking the match. If anger is not generated, there is nothing to heal, nothing to manage, nothing to fix. This is not repression. This is non-creation. Think of anger like a spark. If you don't feed it oxygen, it dies instantly. But the moment you say, "I shouldn't be angry. Why am I like this? I need to calm down," you are already feeding it. Bankei's instruction is simpler. Don't light the spark. Peace is not created. It remains when you stop manufacturing conflict. Bankei calls it the unborn. Not mystical, not abstract. The unborn is the state before reaction, before judgment, before defense, before labeling. When you are not deluded, Bankei says, you are a Buddha. You don't become peaceful. You stop leaving peace. Anger leaves. The unborn does not. Clouds move, storms rage, but the sky remains untouched. Anger is weather. The unborn is the sky. You don't remove clouds. You stop mistaking them for the sky. Try staying in the unborn for 30 days. Not forever, not perfectly, just noticing and not following. After that, it becomes natural. Effort dissolves, not because you try harder, but because you stop interfering. Listen as if you were newly born today. Because preconceptions block truth. A mind that already knows cannot hear. But a mind with nothing can receive everything. After hearing all this, another monk raised a concern. He said, "You always tell people to live in the unborn, but to me, that sounds like telling them to live without purpose, without aim." It's an honest question, because many people secretly believe this. If I don't strive, if I don't chase, if I don't constantly improve, then what am I living for? Bankei looked at him calmly, and then he turned the question upside down. You say living in the unborn is purposeless? you don't live in the unborn yourself. Instead, you are endlessly busy doing this, doing that, spending all your time turning your Buddha mind into something else. Pause here. Bankei continues. What could be more purposeless than that? The monk fell silent. Because suddenly, the question wasn't about purpose anymore. It was about direction. Most people are not without purpose. They are without awareness. They move constantly, but without knowing why. They chase goals, but never arrive. They exhaust themselves and call it a meaningful life. Bankei simply said, live in the unborn. It is certainly not purposeless. A life driven by compulsion feels purposeful, but it leads nowhere. A life lived in clarity appears simple, but it moves in harmony. Another monk spoke up. To live in the Buddha mind, as you say, wouldn't that mean being insensible, unknowing, numb? This fear is common. If I stop reacting, will I stop feeling? If I stop thinking, will I become empty? Bankei didn't answer philosophically. He asked a question instead. What if someone crept up behind you, without your knowing it, and suddenly stabbed you with a sharp tool? Would you feel pain? The monk replied immediately, Of course I would. Bankei nodded. Then you are not insensible. If you were, it would not hurt. This is crucial. The unborn is not numbness. It is direct sensitivity. You feel pain without thinking about pain. You feel heat without naming heat. You respond without constructing a story. Bankei said gently, you feel because you are not insensible, and you never have been. Then he said something important. Have confidence in me. Live in the unborn Buddha mind. Clarity does not dull sensation. It removes unnecessary distortion. Still unconvinced, another monk asked, if one dwells in the unborn, doesn't that mean becoming indifferent to things? Bankei answered again with a lived example. While you are listening to me right now, suppose someone came behind you and pressed a burning firebrand against your back. Would it feel hot? The monk said, Of course it would. Bankei smiled. Then how could you be indifferent? This is subtle. You do not need a thought to know what is hot or cold. You do not need judgment to know what hurts. Discrimination happens naturally. Bankei explained, the Buddha mind possesses illuminating wisdom. It distinguishes things effortlessly. It is anything but indifferent. Indifference is not clarity. Indifference is dullness. The unborn is alive. How could someone who thinks be indifferent? A truly indifferent person would not even be thinking. Then Bankei reassured them, I assure you, you are not indifferent, and you never have been. The unborn does not erase humanity. It restores it. Another monk confessed, I don't know why, but my mind often feels like it's somewhere else. Can you help me keep it from wandering? This is deeply relatable. You sit quietly and your mind runs. You listen, but you don't hear. You are present, but not really here. Bankei responded firmly. The unborn mind of the Buddhas is wonderfully bright and illuminating. No one is ever separated from it. Then he made a surprising point. Your mind is not really wandering. It only seems that way. Because instead of resting in the Buddha mind, you keep transforming it into worries, judgments, imaginings. So even when you hear words, you don't truly take them in. Not because your mind is absent, but because it is being reshaped. Bankei asked a piercing question. If your mind were truly somewhere else, would you even be asking about it? If your mind were gone, you wouldn't notice. The fact that you notice wandering proves presence. Even in deep sleep, if someone calls your name, you wake up. So where was your mind? It was never gone. Distraction is not absence. It is misdirection. Bankei stated clearly, you have never been separated from your mind. Not in the past, not now, not in the future. Just as none of you is truly unenlightened, each of you was born with the Buddha mind. It is your birthright. Unenlightenment is not a condition. It is a deviation. Leaving the Buddha mind, you become confused. Dwelling in it, clarity is natural. Originally, there are no unenlightened people. You are not broken. You are distracted from what is already whole. Bankei then told a simple story. Two men walk the same road. One steals, the other does not. Both are human, but one receives a label, thief. That name follows him everywhere. The other carries no such burden. No mother gives birth to a thief, Bankei said. People become thieves through habit, through imitation, through selfish desire. The thief then claims, I was born this way. It's my karma. Bankei cuts through this illusion. You don't steal because of karma. Stealing itself is the karma. If you don't steal, there is no karma, no sin, no burden. The same applies to anger, to greed, to illusion. They are not fate. They are actions repeated. Identity is not destiny. Repetition creates character. Bankei shared a true story. A notorious thief, a feared criminal, was eventually imprisoned. Later, he was released. He changed his life. He became a sculptor of Buddha images. He died peacefully. Even someone once despised by all, the moment he lives in the Buddha mind, is a living Buddha from that day on. There is no past so dark that clarity cannot enter now. Bankei ended with this truth. All illusions are the same. Having them or not depends entirely on your own mind. If you have illusions, you are deluded. If you do not, you are a Buddha. There is no other shortcut. Fix this unshakably in your mind. Before you leave, don't rush back into noise. Just pause. Right now, as you are listening to these words, notice this. Are you angry? Are you anxious? Are you lost? Or are those things simply not being produced at this moment? You didn't fix anything. You didn't change anything. You simply stopped creating conflict, and peace remained. That is the unborn. Not something to reach, not something to achieve. It has been here the entire time. Every time you say, "That's just how I am," pause and ask gently, "Is this truly who I am? Or is it something I learned to repeat?" Because the moment you stop repeating, there is nothing left to cure. If this video didn't just inform you, but quietly made something fall away, then don't let it disappear. Like this video, not for me, but so you can find your way back here when the mind starts producing again. save it. Return to it, not to understand more, but to remember. And now, I want to hear from you. What emotion have you been calling my personality that you now see might not be you at all? Write it in the comments. You don't need to explain it, just name it. And if you want to continue this journey, not toward becoming something new, but toward living from what has always been here, subscribe. The next video will go even deeper into how the mind quietly pulls you away and how to return without effort. Until then, live in the unborn, and there will be nothing left to fix.